Thank you for calling the Canada Revenue Agency's Individual Tax Inquiry Service.
Okay, ready?
Sure.
So here we are at Queen West Podcast. Our guest today is John Knox. John Knox works with Tax Mechanic, and we're going to find out how he came to Tax Mechanic and talk a little tax. So John, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you ended up sitting across from me.
Well, thanks, Fraser. It's an interesting story. Listeners of the podcast have already been introduced to David Harris, and I've known Dave for well over a decade now, and we met while training for my first marathon, his second marathon. So we met while running, and I distinctly remember the moment that we met, and we were running along the waterfront in beautiful Port Credit, Ontario, and said, "Hey, I'm John." He said, "Hey, I'm Dave. How you doing?" I said, "Well, is this your first?" He said, "No, this is my second marathon." I said, "This is my first." And he said, "This is my second of 19. I'm running the Mississauga Marathon every year for 19 years. I lost my son to suicide, and so I'm running the marathon every year for 19 years for every year of his life." And it really, really stuck with me because of the fact that at that time I felt it was very bold and courageous of him to reveal something so deeply personal to a stranger, or a relative stranger. And it really, really stuck with me. And then over the years, our paths crossed back and forth through the running community, and I eventually became Dave's running coach, strength and conditioning and running coach, and we became fast friends. And so from there, I went on when Dave's the charity that Dave founded, Cameron Helps, became Team Unbreakable, needed their first person to implement running programs into schools and hospitals and community agencies throughout the GTA and Ontario. He decided that I was the person that would best be suited for that. I was working in a corporate job at the time, and I had other thoughts, but eventually he wore me down. So he's quite a salesman. He wore me down, and eventually I left the corporate world and went to the not-for-profit world, and it was kind of an eye-opening experience, to say the least. So several years went by, and I left the not-for-profit world. And when Dave was looking for somebody to help with some sales processes and social media and CRM stuff, but all kinds of some business stuff, he decided again that I was the best person suited for that. So he convinced me to join the Tax Mechanic team and stretch my skills and put my skills to work there. So it's kind of an interesting full circle back into the corporate world again. But it's interesting. I was just having a quick conversation before we started with Fraser about how things have changed over the years. And without giving too much away, I went to college many years ago, far more than I care to remember. And back when I was in college, I realized that taxes were very interesting because there was actually a taxation course as part of my college diploma. And so I was asking for it. I said, "Fraser, I'm not sure. I don't keep up to date on this kind of thing. Do they still teach taxation in college?" And I'll let Fraser tell you what his response to me was.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting question, and I've never really thought about how they teach taxation in Canada. But I was training for, at the time, articling as a chartered accountant student, and your first introduction to taxation in Canada is at the university level, and you have to take, there's tax 1, tax 2, and tax 1 has a high dropout rate, and how they teach it is basically, they teach you everything about tax except corporate in that course, and so the workload is just huge, and so people coming into it for the first time, drop out because it's really hard, and the marks are way down. You have to learn tax, you have to kind of immerse yourself in it for a while, and so it's hard to do other things at the same time. So I think it's, and as you were saying that to me, I was thinking, it's a really poor way to teach tax. What they should do is, chop it up into chunks like they do with other things, and say do a couple of sections for a course, or do it online. And there's none of that right now. So yeah, it's a poor way to do it, but in a way they do that intentionally because they want to weed out people for the CA designation, and to so if you're into tax, you'll stick it out. If you're not, you won't finish the course. So, but I thought that was pretty interesting. John, okay, so how about your experience as a tax mechanic? When you came here, you were helping Dave out with sales calls and doing some computer, social media stuff, and so you've had kind of a broad experience and exposure to clients and people with tax problems. Tell us a bit about your experiences that way.
Well, to begin with, I was actually really surprised at the number of people, the sheer volume of people that are reaching out for help. And really a tax mechanic, and I mean, as I said, I've known Dave for so many years, and I've met Fraser on several occasions since that, just in social environments before starting. And I know that both Fraser and Dave, their true passion is about helping people. And we look at how we go about things. So the sheer volume of people that are inquiring about being behind on their taxes and looking for help to try to make it right. And both Dave and Fraser, I know, approach people in a very helpful way. It's not judgmental, and I'm like to think of myself the same way, where I look at the situations that people get in and just the life circumstances. And I myself, I've been pretty good at filing my taxes. I know one year I didn't file my taxes on time, but I had kind of a strict T4 income. I expected a small return, so I kind of let it slide. But I only did that for 1 year, and I got back on track pretty quickly because I realized the importance of it. And not only that if the government owes you money, one of two things are going to happen. You'll get paid if the government owes you money. But when you're behind on your taxes, one of two things are going to happen. Is that you are going to get paid money back from the government, in which case file your taxes so you can get your money back from the government, or you're going to owe money to the government, in which case you don't want to owe the government money for very long. You want to make sure that you get back on track pretty quickly so that you can do that. People that get behind, I get it. I have a small son. I know how much time that takes. My employment situation has been up and down, and I've worked for not-for-profits and different scenarios. So I understand that case too, where maybe you get a little bit behind because of the fact that you don't have the cash on hand to pay the government. But get your taxes filed, work out a payment plan, and it's going to be so much easier than just ignoring the fact that and hoping that it's just going to go away, because it's not. And so that helpful nature, being able to come back, circle back, help people to get back on track that really want to be there, is what it's all about. So if you've checked out the Tax Mechanic Facebook page, you'll see some different comments and posts that are up there. And I like to approach it from a very light-hearted standpoint. It's being behind in your taxes weighs heavily on people. I like to bring a little bit of levity to that. I like to make it a little bit humorous and try to keep things light-hearted to try to alleviate some of the stress that causes, and show that we're human, that we're people, and I think that humor is a great way to do that. So check out the some of the comments on the Tax Mechanic Facebook page, and you'll see, it's pretty obvious which ones are mine, because mine are always the most humorous posts that could possibly be there.
Okay, and check out the Facebook page, and DM John. He'll give you something funny back to say or something. So now, John, you've been involved a little bit with the Facebook advertising and the Facebook page and social media, and speak a little bit about Facebook and Facebook advertising and for small businesses and for people out there thinking about starting a business or maybe advertising or reaching out even as a nonprofit advertising on Facebook. What your experiences have been that way, and how you think Facebook could help them.
Well, it's interesting. I have a friend of mine that actually, kind of put out a general inquiry post on their Facebook page in their newsfeed, and I read it, and it was about looking for a way to handle customer calls and things like that. And here at the Tax Mechanic, we use a number of different ways, but HubSpot is one of those ways that we handle how we reach out to people to make sure that we follow up in a timely manner. Trying to help people, and through Facebook, it's great because any of the people that respond to any of the ads that we post through Facebook come through and come in, so we can handle them in a timely way. And so that's important, but it's kind of trying to find the best way to appeal to people and to reach out to people in a helpful way. And it's unfortunate because sometimes people think that they see that and they think that it's a scam. Well, I'm sitting in an office doing a podcast with Fraser, who I know has everybody's best interests at heart to make sure that they pay the fair amount of tax, which involves tax planning and a number of different things that he's spoken about in the past. And so it's not a scam. We are legitimately trying to help people, and so it kind of bothers me a little bit when we get that response. But I guess to coin a phrase, haters gonna hate. And so you move on, you put that behind you, and help the people that really do need the help. And some of the stories that we hear are just heartbreaking, and we'll hear a little bit more about that kind of moving forward in different podcasts. I don't want to get into it right now because I'll probably break down crying and tearing up, and you just don't want to hear that kind of sobbing during a podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do hear some real sad stories, and I think that's what kind of drives us a little bit too, is to try and help people. Once we do help people, it feels so good that you're really making an impact on them, and you want to do it for more people. And there are probably lots of people that are going to listen to this thinking about getting their taxes up to date. We encourage you to give us a call, and the process, it's not that difficult. You can do a voluntary disclosure, save yourself some penalties, and get ahead of the situation and deal with it, and you'll feel such relief afterwards. And part of to address what your other people out there saying negative comments and stuff, I think you have to realize that Revenue Canada kind of gets a bad rap with this. I mean, they've got a job to do. And there are some mean collection officers, yes, but my experience has been they're like, 1 out of 100. And so most of them will work with you, and they're compassionate. They're human beings too. And so, if you talk to them and you converse with them and you do what you say you're going to do and get back to, you can, I almost always resolve the situation to your benefit and usually save you money. So, John, is there anything else you'd like to hit upon, as far as taxes or the Tax Mechanic before we call an end to this?
Well, the only thing that I would do is, again, encourage people to reach out. And even if you are, not necessarily behind on your taxes, but just looking, if you're a small business owner, looking to alleviate some of the tax and stress and and the bookkeeping part of things, where just spend your time running your business, and let the pros look after that. And again, tax planning and coming around. It's great to have a conversation. You learn so much. You sit, book an hour with Fraser and sit down and have a chat about some of the things that you can do to pay the fair amount of tax, and that's a great thing. We live in a great country, and does the government waste some money? Absolutely. I waste money all the time at home. I don't expect that much different from the government. So do they waste money? Absolutely. But is there a lot of good that comes out of the taxes that we pay? Absolutely. So it's all about paying the fair amount of tax and enjoying the great country that we live in.
Yes, that's the taxes pay for hospitals and the roads that we drive on and the infrastructure that we have. So if you want to get caught up, you can reach out to us. You can go on Facebook and connect with John, or call the number on the website. You'll get Dave, or schedule a call with myself. We'd be happy to help you. So over and out for Queen West, and we'll talk next time. You can find this, future and past podcasts, and other content we release on YouTube. We also have socials on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, which can be found in the comments below. If you liked our show today, please give us a like. Drop a comment below. If anyone wants to see us do something specific on our main channels, please comment below or DM me, and we will be able to hear what you have to say. In 2 weeks, we have another podcast coming your way. Keep an eye out for that. And if you want a reminder, hit that little bell icon next to the subscribe button, and you'll get it in your notifications right away. Until next time, that was the Queen West Podcast.
And that's the end of the podcast.